Now lastly, this is the gist of the story, whatever we have discussed so far. Okay, so you can see skin having two layers, epidermis and dermis. Epidermis is superficial, dermis is deep, and in epidermis 5 layers are there from deep to superficial. तो यहाँ पे deepest layer कौन सा है? Which is the deepest layer? Which is the deepest layer over here? Stratum Basale. Yes, stratum. This is the deepest layer, and this is the superficial layer. ठीक है? And here you can see superficial papillary layer and deep reticular layer. Okay. Whenever you are writing practical histo, is write this part. Okay, because during the time of exam, it will help you. And in theory exam, I have seen question used to come from skin, histology of skin. Okay. Okay, so we'll see one slide. Okay, only one slide is there. Now you have to identify whether it is thick or thin. I will not comment anything. Okay. After that, I hope you know today you are having class. Sir will take one class from 5 to 6 p.m. Okay, so today we'll be discussing about the skin. So anything have you studied about the skin in physiology? Anything or types of skin or the layers of the skin? Anything? No. Okay. Have you heard about the integumentary system? So in integumentary system, the skin is included, which is the largest organ of the body. Okay. Along with that, some other structures are also included. For example, hair follicles are there, sebaceous gland, sweat gland, erector pili muscle. Okay, these are the structures situated in this integumentary system. Now, if you see the integumentary system, different layers are present: epidermis, dermis, hypodermis, and associated structures. For example, glands, different types of glands, hairs, nails, etc. Okay, if you see the main function, okay, it plays a very important role in formation of the physical barrier between the internal and external environment. Okay, mainly to protect the internal environment. Okay, and in addition to that, it is having different functions. For example, temperature regulation, cell fluid maintenance, synthesis of vitamin D, and stimulation. Okay, detection of stimulation or detection of stimuli. These are some important functions of the integumentary system. Now, in that, so many other structures are there, but we'll be discussing only about the skin. Okay, because what I have noticed in histo, questions used to ask from skin. Okay, describe the layers of skin. So in histology of skin, as you know that it is the structure which covers the body. Okay, provides dynamic interface between the internal and external environment. Okay, why skin is considered as organ? Why skin is considered an organ? Because several kind of tissues are there that are structurally arranged to function together. Okay, different types of tissues are there. As we will study the layers, you will come to know. Okay, so they are arranged together. They are arranged structurally so that they can function together. That's why it is called as organ. Okay, now if you see why it is called the largest organ, because it is covering 7,600 square centimeter, almost 7% of the body weight of a person. Okay, that's why it is called as the largest organ. Now, the general appearance and condition of the skin is clinically very important. I hope you have seen whenever you go to a doctor, they used to see the color of the skin. Based on that, some diagnoses are done. Okay, that means if a healthy skin is there, the color of the skin denotes the health of a person in some cases. Okay. Next, can anyone tell me how many types of skins are there in our body? How many types of skin are there? 2 types of skin are there. Okay, thin skin and thick skin. 2 types of skin are there, thick skin and thin skin. So can you tell me where is the thin skin situated and where is the thick skin situated? Thin skin is also called as hairy skin, where hair follicles are present. That is the thin skin. Thick skin means the area where hair follicles are absent, and there is a layer called lucidum, so stratum corneum. This stratum corneum is well developed in case of thick skin, and stratum lucidum also. Okay. So if you see the differences between the thick skin and thin skin, yeah, here you can see the differences between the thick skin and thin skin. So first of all, stratum lucidum is a layer. We'll be discussing about the layers. So stratum lucidum is a layer which is present in thick skin and which is absent in thick skin. Okay. Next, if you see the thickness of the epidermis, which is more thick. In case of thick skin, the epidermis is more thicker. Next, epidermal ridges are present, and in case of thin skin, it is absent. Hair follicles in thick skin, they are absent. Hair follicle thick skin में नहीं रहता. Next, erector pili muscle is though related to the hair follicle, that's why it is absent. Next, sebaceous gland, these are also absent. But sweat glands are plenty. Number of sweat glands are more in case of thick skin. In thin skin, sweat glands are less, very few. Okay. Next, some important receptors, as you can see, sensory receptors or Merkel cells. These are more in case of thick skin. In case of thin, it is less. Next, you can see the location. Okay, means where the thick and thin skin are located. In most of the area, thin skin is situated. Thick skin, palm of the hand, dorsum of the foot. Those are the areas where thick skin is situated. Rest in most of the areas, thin skin is situated. Okay. So these are some differences between the thick skin and thin skin. Very easy to understand. Okay. Only one thing which you will be having difficulty, that is the stratum lucidum. Okay. So what is the stratum lucidum? We will discuss. So can anyone tell me histologically how many layers are there in the skin? Histologically, how many layers are there in the skin? Any idea? Only 2 layers are there. What are they? Yes. Follow. Epidermis and dermis. As simple as that. Only 2 layers are there. We have studied all those things in 10th, 12th standard. सिर्फ 2 लेयर रहता है. Okay. Epidermis, deep to that, dermis is situated. Okay. So histologically you can see the skin consists of 2 layers, epidermis and dermis. Okay. So epidermis is the superficial layer. It is thin. Okay. Now mainly if you see, it is made up of stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. Stratified squamous keratinized epithelium. Sorry, not non. Stratified squamous keratinized epithelium that is present in the epidermis. And if you see the dermis, it is the deep layer. So पहले epidermis रहेगा. Below that you will be getting the dermis. Okay. And it is made up of connective tissue. Dermis is made up of connective tissue. Okay. Now the dermis is resting on subcutaneous tissue. Okay. Now if you take a section of the skin where both dermis and epidermis are present, so the junction between the dermis and epidermis, they are not straight. It is wavy in appearance. Can you tell me why? Let me show you the diagram. Can you see the junction between the dermis and epidermis? So the junction of dermis and epidermis, it is not straight or it is not plain, it is wavy. So can you tell me why this is wavy? Because of the presence of dermal papilla. Okay, this is very important. Now this dermal papilla will hold, one layer is holding another layer. That's why these projections are present. And with the presence of the projection, the attachment of both the layers, it is wavy in nature, as you can see in the diagram. Okay? So when you are taking a section through the skin, the line of the junction between 2 layers are not straight but wavy because of the presence of finger-like projection of the dermis, okay, into the epidermis, and those are called as dermal papillae, as you can see. So 2 types of papillae are there. Dermal papillae are present and epidermal papillae are also present. Okay, the downward projection of the epidermis into the dermis is called epidermal papillae. Okay, so both the papillae are present, and it is very important because both the layers are folded against each other with the help of this papillae. That's why the junction of both the layers are not straight. It is wavy in appearance. Okay, so first we will be discussing about the can you see the epidermis? First we will be discussing about the epidermis and then we will be discussing about the dermis. Okay, so what we have to study about the epidermis? Here also in skin the basic concept is only layers. Okay, skin में भी और कुछ नहीं. Same like the cerebellum, whatever we have studied. What was the concept in cerebellum? Only layers. From superficial to deep or from deep to superficial. Same here also we will be studying about the epidermis and dermis. Epidermis superficial रहता है, deep रहता है dermis. But if you see the thickness of the dermis is more as compared to the epidermis. But the number of layers are more in case of epidermis as compared to the dermis. ठीक है? So first we will see the epidermis. So the layers which are present in the epidermis and then the layers which are present in the dermis. Okay. Any guess how many layers will be there in the epidermis? 5 layers are present in the epidermis. Okay. So here how we will study the layers? We will study from deep to superficial. Okay. Deep to superficial. We will be studying the layers. And after that the layers of the dermis. In dermis only 2 layers are present. Okay. Now here you can see the name of the layers. Okay. So epidermis is derived from ectoderm and mainly composed of stratified squamous keratinized epithelium. Okay. So in our skin the epithelium which is present, it is stratified squamous keratinized epithelium. That means keratin protein are present. Okay. Non-keratinized means keratin is absent. But in our skin, keratin protein is present. Okay. Now, if you see the layers, okay, so how many layers are there? As you can see, total 5 layers are there. So, which is the deepest layer? No, here. See the diagram. तो ये देखो, this is the epidermis and this is the dermis. ठीक है? तो इसमें सबसे deepest layer कौन सा है? Stratum basale. ठीक है? So this is the deepest layer. So as I said, here we will be studying the layers from deep to superficial. In case of cerebellum you have seen from superficial to deep we have studied. यहाँ पे उल्टा होगा. Okay, and that means we'll start from here, from this stratum basale, and then we'll go to the stratum corneum. Okay, so in that you can see total 5 layers are present. I hope you have heard about these layers. Yes. So what exactly we have to study in these layers? Any idea? कोई भी लेयर है तो what we have to study? Yes, cells. What are the different types of cells present? As simple as that. And what is the shape of the cells? And after that, though it is H&E stain slide, then what will be the appearance? For example, जो stratum basale है, when you will see under microscope, उसका appearance कैसा होगा? And if you see the stratum corneum, okay, उसका appearance कैसा होगा? Okay, so here you will see some layers are basophilic in nature, some layers are eosinophilic in nature. Like this only you have to know which layer is what in appearance, because after all you have to see under microscope. That also H&E takes line. Okay, so the basic concept is same. That means layers from deep to superficial. Okay, the cells which are present in deep, what is the shape? Okay, and what is the appearance, whether it is darkly stained or whether it is lightly stained. Only that much, nothing else. Okay, so which is the first layer? As you can see, the name of the layers: Stratum Basale, Spinosum, Granulosum, Lucidum and Corneum. These are the 5 layers. Okay, so if you see the corneum, it is the most superficial layer. Okay, so you have to understand all the layers one by one. So first is the stratum basale. It is the deepest layer, as you can see. Okay. Now what is the shape of these particular cells? These are cuboidal or low columnar cells, and they are resting in basement membrane. Okay, as you can see, these are cuboidal or low columnar cells, and they are resting in a basement membrane. As you can see, the basement membrane are present. Okay. Next, H&E stain slide. What will be the appearance? Basophilic cytoplasm. That means these are darkly stained. Okay, basophilic cytoplasm, these are darkly stained. Why this basophilic cytoplasm? Because of the presence of melanin pigments. तो ये जो cells है, inside that melanin pigments are present. Due to the presence of the pigment, it is darkly stained, basophilic in nature. Okay. Now, what is the main function of the stratum basale? It acts as stem cell. That means continuous mitosis is going on, and the surface cells or other cells, if it is shed off, okay, new cells are replaced, okay, and that replacement is done mainly in the stratum basale layer. Okay, तो stratum basale जो layer है, as you can see over here, इसमें continuously mitosis होता है. As a result, new cells are formed. Okay, तो जो superficial layers है, from there if cells are shed off, these cells will go and replace them. That's why this layer is also called as stratum germinativum. Stratum germinativum. Germinativum. Okay, germinativum. Next layer is the stratum spinosum. Okay, इसके ऊपर वाला जो layer है, this is called the stratum spinosum. Now, why it is called as stratum spinosum? Above the basal layer, several layers of polygonal cells are there. Okay, several layers, or you can say multiple layers. 4 to 5 layers of multiple cells are present. Okay, they are polygonal in appearance. Okay, now if polygonal in appearance, then why they are called as spinosum? Because whenever the processing is done, first of all, these cells are attached to each other with the help of desmosomes. ये जो layers का cells है spinosum, इसमें जो cells होता है, they are attached to each other by desmosome. When the preparation is done, the cells is to get shrink. Okay, the cell shrinks. Once the cell shrinks, okay, some spiny appearance can be seen in the cell. That's why it is called as stratum spinosum. Okay. So due to this shrinkage, the spines appears in the cell. That's why these are called as spinosum. Okay. Now this layer is also called as spinosum, and the keratinocytes of these layers are called as prickle cells. Okay. So the cells of these layers are also called as prickle cells. Now here also in the deeper part of this layer, the mitosis is going on. That's why this layer is also under germinative zone of the epidermis. Okay, so you have to understand one thing. ये जो particular layer है, stratum spinosum, it is not a single layer. Stratum basale is single layer cell. एक ही layer का cell रहता है in case of stratum basale. But in case of stratum spinosum, multiple layers of cells are present. Okay, it is multiple layer. Now cells are polygonal, but whenever we are processing the slide, whenever we are preparing the slide, okay, what happen? The cell is to get shrink. तो जहाँ पे attached है with desmosome, in that part no changes are there. Other parts spine-like appearance form होता है whenever it becomes shrinks. That's why it is called as stratum spinosum. Okay. And the cells are also called as prickle cells. P-R-I-C-K-L-E. Prickle cells. Okay. Next is the stratum granulosum. Okay. Above that, here you can see this is the stratum granulosum. Okay, above the stratum spinosum, here the cells are called stratum granulosum. It is also multiple layer of cells are present. In this layer, multiple layers of cells are present. Approximately 5 layers of cells are present. Okay. Now these are characterized by deeply staining granules in the cytoplasm. That is called keratohyalin granules. So stratum granulosum में one type of granules are present. These are called as keratohyalin granules. Okay. Now the keratohyalin granules are the precursor of keratin. From this granule only the keratin protein is produced. Okay. Now the nuclei of these cells are condensed and darkly stained. Stratum granulosum. Next is the stratum lucidum. Okay. Now here you can see a layer, homogeneous layer is present. That is called as stratum lucidum. Now please keep that in mind. ये जो layer है stratum lucidum, it is well developed and present only in case of thick skin. In thin skin, stratum lucidum नहीं रहता है. Okay, this is the you can say one of the main difference between the thin and thick skin. जो thick skin होता है उसमें stratum lucidum जो होता है, it is well developed. And in case of thin skin, it is absent. When you will see the stratum lucidum under H&E slide, okay, under H&E Stein's slide. At that time it is homogeneous in appearance, then also eosinophilic. Homogeneous eosinophilic appearance. Now in this particular layer, the cells boundaries are indistinct. Okay, nuclei, cell organelles disappear towards the superficial layer. So towards the superficial side, the cell membrane, the cell organelles, they disappear. Instead of that, a special type of protein is present. It is called as eledin. E-L-E-D-I-N. E-L-E-I-D-I-N. Eledin. A special type of protein is present in this particular layer, Stratum Lucidum. Okay. Now it is a clear intracellular protein derived from keratohyalin and gets stained with hematoxylin. Okay. Now this eledin gets converted into keratin. So this eledin protein later will get converted into keratin. Okay. So that is the specialty of the Stratum Lucidum. Now there is another diagram. Here you can see the diagram of thick skin. Can you see the Stratum Lucidum? Here this is the Stratum Lucidum. So I was talking about this layer. Can you see the appearance of this layer, Stratum Lucidum? क्या है इसका appearance? First of all, it is homogeneous. Next, it is eosinophilic. Okay, and in this layer, the cells, they have lost their boundary. They have lost their cellular organelles. Okay. Now, what is present in this layer? A special type of protein is present. It is called eledin. E-L-E-I-D-I-N. Okay, and from this eledin only the keratin are produced. Okay. Next, lastly is the Stratum Corneum, the most superficial layer. Can you see the Stratum Corneum? This is the Stratum Corneum, most superficial layer of the epidermis. Okay, so first of all, if you see the layer, it is non-nucleated. You cannot see any nuclei in this layer. In the Stratum Corneum, can you see any nuclei? एक भी nuclei नहीं रहता है. Okay, non-nucleated. These are flat, scale-like cells, dead cells, and cellular organelles are also not present. Okay, now these particular cells are filled by keratin filaments. So keratin protein, from there keratin filament. Keratin filaments are formed, and those keratin filaments are present in this particular layer. Okay. Now these cells are held together by extracellular lipid and carbohydrates. Okay. तो ये जो stratum corneum है, उसमें जो cells रहता है, these cells are held together by extracellular lipid and carbohydrate. Okay. And due to the presence of extracellular lipid, okay, this particular layer is water impermeable. Okay, this layer is water impermeable. इसका मतलब क्या है? That means our skin is waterproof. Okay, that means our skin is waterproof. Only the whenever you pour water, ठीक है? Only the stratum corneum जो layer है, उसमें पानी लगता है. Beyond that, water can't go. Because the water which you are using, many pathogens may be there whenever you are washing or whenever you are taking bath. ठीक है? So that may cause damage because in the dermis, blood vessels are present. Okay? So pathogen may go inside this particular layer. So in order to make it waterproof, I am using the word waterproof, actually it is water impermeable, this extracellular lipid is present. Due to the presence of the extracellular lipid, okay, and carbohydrate, this particular stratum corneum, it is impermeable to water. That means water cannot enter inside this layer. तो इसका मतलब क्या है? Whenever water is touched over here, only this part will get wet. Beyond that, water is unable to reach. Okay. So in our skin, whenever you are pouring water, whenever you are taking bath, only this layer is getting wet. Beyond that, water is unable to reach. Okay. So this stratum corneum is very important. Why it is important? Because if you see here, you will not get any nuclei, non-nucleated. Cellular organelles are disappeared. Okay, but if you see the cellular organelles, they are replaced by keratin filaments. Keratin filaments are present. Okay, next the cell boundary which is there, they are hold together. How they are holded together? With the help of this extracellular lipid and carbohydrate. Special form of extracellular lipid and carbohydrate. Okay, so that is holding the cells together, and along with that they are making a water impermeable membrane, so that water cannot enter inside beyond this layer. Okay. Next, if you see the thickness of the stratum corneum, it depends. Okay, where the amount of friction is more, जहाँ पे friction ज़्यादा है, in that particular part, the corneum, stratum corneum, the thickness is more. Can you give some example where the friction is more? Yes, in the palm, friction is more. In the sole, when you are walking, friction is there, continuously friction is taking place. That's why in those areas, the thickness of this layer, stratum corneum, is more as compared to other areas. तो जहाँ पे फ्रिक्शन ज़्यादा होता है वहाँ पे स्ट्रेटम कॉर्नियम का थिकनेस भी ज़्यादा होता है. ओके, now so these are the layers of epidermis. Okay, 5 layers. Next, the layers of the dermis. Next is the layers of dermis. As I said, how many layers are there in the dermis? Only 2 layers are there. Superficial one is the papillary, deep one is the reticular layer. Okay, but the thickness of dermis is more as compared to the epidermis. ठीक है? In case of dermis, only 2 layers are there. The superficial one is the papillary layer, deep one is the reticular layer. Papillary layer का जो thickness is very less, only 1/5. Okay, so papillary layer is the superficial layer forming the 1/5 of the dermis, and if you see, it is mainly made up of dense connective tissue of the dermal papillae. So it is made up of dense connective tissue. Now here, dermal papillae and epidermal ridges are longer in skin where mechanical stresses are more. Next, the most important part of the dermal ridges are they create superficial elevations. Okay, on the surface of epidermis. जो dermal ridges होता है, what they will do? They will create elevation on the surface of epidermis, and these are called as dermal ridges. And these dermal ridges are unique for each and every individual. Okay, and those are only forming the fingerprints. Okay, so the pattern of dermal ridges. The pattern of dermal ridges are unique in each individual, and they are genetically determined. So the study of those ridges, these are called as dermatoglyphics. Okay, or also called as fingerprint study. So 4 types of fingerprints are there: loop, mold, composite, and arch, which we will study in forensic medicine next year. Okay, so this whenever the fingerprints are taken, I hope you have observed. Okay, so that unique pattern which is present, that is only because of the dermal ridges, which produces superficial elevation on the surface of the epidermis, and that is unique for each and every individual. That's why your fingerprint and her fingerprint is not matched. Okay, so that is about the dermal layer. Next is the reticular layer. So reticular layer, the name suggests, here you will be getting the different types of fibers. Okay, mainly the bundles, thick bundles of collagen, type 1 collagen fibers are there. Along with that, some amount of elastic fibers are also present. Okay, now the direction of the bundles, okay, of the collagen fibers in the reticular layer, it produces the Langerhans line. I hope you have studied about the Langerhans line. Okay, now the cleavage lines are horizontal in case of trunk, neck, and longitudinal in case of limb. Can anyone tell me the importance of this cleavage line or Langerhans line? Very important clinical significance. Yes, very good. तो ये जो रेटिकुलर लेयर रहता है, in that reticular layer you are getting bundles of type 1 collagen fibers along with the reticular fibers. तो इसका जो arrangement है, it is definite. Okay, for example, if you see, it is horizontal in case of trunk and neck and longitudinal in case of limbs. ठीक है, That means whenever any surgery is done, so the incision is taken parallel to the line or Langerhans line or parallel to the cleavage line, so that when healing will take place, there will be no formation of scar or a very small amount of scar will be formed. Okay, that is the clinical significance of this Langerhans line. Or else, if you are taking parallel incision, you are cutting the skin along with the line of the bundles of collagen fibers. Okay, but if you are taking the incision which is perpendicular, then you are cutting the collagen fibers. तो उसका जो healing होता है, it takes time and due to that scar formation may take place. Okay, that is the important significance of the Langerhans line. Okay. Next, in between the bundles of the collagen fibers and reticular fibers, what is present? Adipose tissue is present. Okay. Now the dermis, if you see, it is resting on superficial fascia. Okay, through which it is attached to the deeper structure. Okay. Next, in this particular layer only, epidermically derived structures are present, such as sweat glands, hair follicles, sebaceous glands. All these structures are present in the reticular layer of the dermis. Okay. Next is hypodermis. Anyone have you heard about hypodermis? Dermis के नीचे रहता है. Okay, also known as subcutaneous fascia, located beneath the dermis or below the dermis. So it is the deepest layer of the skin, contain adipose, lobules, sensory neurons, blood vessels. Okay, all these structures are present in the hypodermis. Okay. Now let me show you one diagram. Yeah. Can you see the layers? First, what you can see? First, you can see the epidermis. Okay, superficial you can see the epidermis. Okay. In epidermis, you can see all the layers. Okay. Next, if you come to the dermis, I hope you can see the papillary layer and you can see the reticular layer. So just see the thickness of the papillary layer. It is less. Okay. And if you see the thickness of the reticular layer, it is more. Okay. Next, in the reticular layer, you can see the hair follicles. Along with that, you can see blood vessels. Okay. Sebaceous glands. All those structures are present over reticularly. The reticular layer. Okay, and deep to that you can see the hypodermis. Okay, where artery, vein, all those structures are present. This one, this is the hypodermis. Okay. Now, in the layers of the skin, especially I am talking about the epidermis, different types of cells are present. Once you go to the dermis, the number of cells are very less. Okay. Once you present in the epidermis, at that time, different types of cells are there. Okay, so there is a list of cells present in different layers of epidermis. Okay, first, the most common one is the so here you can see the list of the cells present. The most common one is the keratinocytes. After that, melanocytes, Langerhans cells, and Merkel cells. These are the different types of cells present. 85% of the cell population are made up of keratinocytes. Okay. Now these keratinocyte cells, germinal cells of the stratum basale, they divide mitotically and give rise to the keratinocyte cells. Okay, they will go to the surface. Okay, the major function of these particular cells are production of the keratin protein. Here we go. Include production of keratin protein and formation of the epidermal water barrier. This is the one of the important function of the keratinocytes. Okay. Now, keratin assembled in the form of keratin filaments, or also called as stonofilaments, or also called as intermediate filaments on the superficial surface, as we have discussed. Next, other types of cells are also present. For example, Langerhans cells are there. Okay, you can see the shape of the Langerhans cells. They are derived from bone marrow. Okay, especially the main function is antigen presenting cell. They act as antigen presenting cells. Then you can see the Merkel cells. Okay, so these are the Merkel cells where mechanoreceptors are attached. Okay, so इसका function क्या है? Tactile localization. What is tactile localization? Tactile localization in physiology you have studied about this. Tactile क्या होता है tactile localization? Any idea? Tactile localization you have not studied. क्या होता है? क्या होता है? What is tactile localization? Stand up. Keep it. Come here. See what is tactile. Do like this. Now close your eyes. See, I have pricked over here. Now she can feel. I have pricked over here. Now suppose with two objects, if I prick, she can feel where I have pricked. But eyes are closed. That is called tactile localization. ठीक है? I know you have studied all those things in physiology. So for that, mechanoreceptors are helping. Okay, and that is done by the Merkel cells. Next is the melanocytes. So here you can see the melanocyte cells. Okay, so इसका function क्या है? Synthesis of melanin and then transfer it to the keratinocytes. Okay, तो इसका function क्या है? To determine the color of the skin. Okay, so these are different types of cells present in the epidermis. Okay, now I will show you two images. First, the image of the thin skin and next image of the thick skin. Okay, try to differentiate between the thin skin and thick skin. Now, what are the differences? See, the most important one you have to see is the stratum lucidum. Okay, if you see the stratum lucidum, it is absent in case of thin skin. In case of thick skin, it is well developed. Okay. Next, if you see the stratum corneum, that is also thick in case of thick skin. Next, the hair follicles, sebaceous gland, erector pili muscle, all those things are absent in thick skin, but these are present in case of thin skin. So, like this, easily you can differentiate. Now, can anyone tell me which skin is this? Why it is thick skin? Because you can see the stratum lucidum. ठीक है? Just see the diagram. इसमें stratum lucidum अच्छे से दिखाई दे रहा है. You can see. The stratum lucidum can be seen easily, and just see the thickness of the stratum corneum. Next, if you see inside the in the dermis part, okay, hair follicles are absent. If hair follicles are absent, then sebaceous glands will not be there. Erector pili muscle will not be there. But the number of sweat glands are more, as you can see in the diagram. Okay? So this is the diagram of thick skin. And this is the diagram of thick or thin. This is the diagram of which type of skin? Thin skin. Why it is thin? Because you can't see the stratum lucidum. देखो इसमें stratum lucidum दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है. Next, can you see the stratum corneum? The thickness of the stratum corneum is very less. Next, what you can see in the dermis? Can you see these are the hair follicles? And along with hair follicles, you can see sebaceous glands, and you can see the erector pili muscle also. Okay, so like this easily it can be differentiated which is thick skin and thin skin. ठीक है?